I'd like to welcome our online viewers and I hope you enjoy it. Sometime maybe even show up so we can meet you in person. But we are glad to have you join us this morning online. Well, for the last few weeks, Melanie has been talking about the face of God from several perspectives. One way is seeing God as, or some divine activity in everything. Wherever you look, there is God. And so it's kind of is that kind of like a Buddhist thought? That it's wherever there is, the divinity is at work there. And so we just see the divine wherever we go. Another way is to see God or the divine as something separate from us but interacting with us. And this is what I think many of us grew up with in traditional churches, that God is separate from us but connected to us. And so it's another way of looking at God. Of course, that got shaken up a lot when Jesus actually called God Daddy. He used the word Abba. And that really, for that time period, was radical. And it shook everything up because all of a sudden he was seeing this personal connection with God, because previously God had been out there guiding everything. And that, you say your prayers, you do your celebrations, you do your praises, you do all of that to feel that connection with God. And he was trying to show us that there's a different relationship that we have. That God is like a loving parent being there for us and guiding us through our lives. Well, the third way is to see God as something at work through us. So we've got the three ways. And as I listened to Melanie, I realized that there is no one right way to view God. Depending on what's going on in our lives, we may need to see God in everything that we're viewing. I know when I see some of the pictures from the Hubble telescope, oh my gosh, I'm in awe of how beautiful it is and how wonderful this universe is. And I just see this through every extent of the galaxy. Something is at work to create this beautiful, beautiful world and beautiful worlds. I had a birthday last week, and someone gave me a little plaque, and it says, "Save the Earth, it's the only planet with chocolate." And I hadn't thought of it that way, but let's save the chocolate. So at different times, we need to see God in all of these perspectives, depending on what is going on in our lives. Sometimes we just feel it's just too much for us to handle. So we just, that's when we have that God as a parent. We need you to take care of us. Please help, right? And that's one of the shortest prayers that many of us have. Please help. Just think of how our view of God changed when we went into space and we first saw the picture of the Earth as this little blue ball hanging out in this ocean of black. Do y'all remember that? It really took us all back because we had never seen our world from that perspective. My mother was a kindergarten teacher at that time when we first walked on the moon. And the kids were doing a science project. And their hypothesis was, are things that are round, and will all things that are round roll? Now for a 5-year-old, this is pretty heavy scientific thought. And so what they did is they took a ball of clay and they made it into a ball, and they learned the word sphere, and yes, it would roll. Then they flattened that ball of clay and to make a disc, and now the disc would roll. So this is how they were learning new terms, and then they were also exploring how it would work. They rolled up the disc into making kind of a snake, and then made that into a circle. So again, it was round, but it didn't roll. And so she put all of these little items with the clay and everything, and the little comments that the kids made while they were doing their scientific exploration. And so Mom put that picture of the Earth up in the back of and she had a box cut out, and she had all these little gatherings of a sphere and a disc and all of that. And so she had this picture of the Earth, and one little boy, one little 5-year-old, said, well, the Earth is round all right, but only God can roll it. And they actually won a prize. And one of the judges said, I keep coming back to this, it's the cutest thing I ever saw. And the kids were exploring science. But boy, to have the Earth in all of its glory as part of that process, it was a really neat time for everyone. I have a seed at home. I was going to bring it, and I think I walked off and left it. And it's a watermelon seed. Anybody split seeds this summer? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's part of it when you have your watermelon. We had my grandparents had the old kind of driveway where they had cement walls on either side so that their Model T could go up the middle. You know, this is going way back. What we used to do is sit on one wall and spit seeds to see if we could bounce, how far we could bounce it off the other side. So watermelon seeds to me are just fun. But if you think about it, these tiny seeds contain the power to draw from the Earth and through its internal programming reproduce 200,000 times its weight. This little tiny seed can reproduce 200,000 times its weight. It takes sunlight from the sky, water from the clouds, and minerals from the earth, and turns itself into a bright green rind, a vivid pink core, and hundreds of seeds to again go through the reproduction process. Who created this miracle that keeps us fed so wonderfully in the summertime? When you think about it, just those little watermelon seeds are miraculous. And when we see God in everything, God is there. God is creating anew. With every little seed, it reproduces over and over again. It is certainly beyond our power to create, yet there it is in every grocery store across our country. It's another aspect of the divine providing for us. The other way to look at God is God as us. We are this fabulous creation. And seeing how this seed is programmed to create another seed, to create another watermelon, what are we programmed to create? We have a little more expansiveness than a watermelon seed, which only produces after itself. Because we can reproduce and produce in so many ways. We are the fabulous creation of the divine, but where the watermelon seed is only programmed one way, we are open to create in as many ways as we possibly can. When we see ourselves as the hands and feet of God, here to bring into manifestation our highest good and the highest good for others, we see our own strong connection with the divine that each and every one of us has. I love our prayer time on Sunday morning because I feel this connection. I feel the energy that is in each and every one of you reaching out to connect with every request, to bring an energy to it, to know that each prayer is going to be answered wonderfully for the highest good for others and the highest good for ourselves. You know, when I teach the chaplains on how to pray, and we always say when you're praying, you are giving out the carbon copy, but you're keeping the original energy for yourself. Because we just add our energy to this, whatever the request is, but we also keep that wonderful energy for ourselves as well, whether you're praying for someone else or praying for yourself. Many of you know I'm writing a book which is all about how God shows up in our lives. I don't know, some of you weren't there when I talked about this originally, so let me kind of backtrack on what happened here. I was teaching the chaplain training class last summer, and toward the end, one of the ladies and I just started sharing back and forth how God has shown up in our lives. And it just got to be more and more exciting that she was sharing that all the ways that things had happened that beyond her control, that she knew it was something greater than herself at work, and it was touching her deeply, and we were getting more and more excited. And finally she just burst out, "How about that, God?" So that's what I'm going to call the book. How about that, God? Because God can show up in so many ways, but He shows up through us as well. We are often called to be something more than we thought we were. I've been asking people to send me their stories of how God has shown up in their lives, and boy, these stories have been absolutely amazing. And what really has amazed me the most is that everyone I have talked to has a story about God, has a story about how God has shown up through them into creating something beyond anything that they could imagine. It could be, and I think I shared this story, when I collapsed with the cancer, and I'm laying there on the floor of my bedroom, unable to move. What I didn't realize at the time is that the cancer had been eating up the potassium. So the ability to communicate from my brain to my muscles was severely impacted. And I couldn't walk. It took me like 30 minutes to move 3 feet. I mean, it's really strange when your body doesn't respond to what's going on. And I kept thinking, actually I started laughing. I just a shriveled corpse of Unity minister found 3 months later. I didn't know what else to do but to laugh about the whole situation. I knew it was serious, but what was I going to do? Well, then there came a knock at the door. And it was Annette Mize, who used to be the associate minister here. And she suddenly felt this urge that she just had to see me, and she had to see me that day. And she heard my calls out for help. And she got an ambulance there, and they got me to the hospital. I mean, bless her for hearing that voice within her that said, Sydney needs to see you, and you need to see her, and you need to see her now. Does it sound logical? No. Does it sound reasonable? No. Yet look what happened. It's exactly what was needed at the time it was needed, and it helped literally save my life. So, excuse me just a second here. I would call that God in action. That voice was just telling her, go see Sydney, go see Sydney. She didn't know why. She didn't know what was going on. But she responded to it. It seems like something beyond ourselves demands to work through us. That we become the hands, the feet, the voice of God to help elevate and to help save each other. To help be God here on earth. Either something outside of ourselves is calling us into a new awareness, or we feel called to act or react differently than we normally would. that's what these, have you ever heard this voice? Am I speaking to, what are you talking about? Something that just, you cannot not do it. And when that happens and you respond, miracles happen. God is at work through you. You are God in action. Reverend Jim Rosemurgy, who is one of my favorite Unity ministers, you know him, yeah. He put it this way: not only are we engineered to experience oneness with the presence, but we are created so spirit can express itself in and through and as us. In and through and as us. We are doors, stargates, through which the divine light may shine and illumine a shadowy world. Our purpose is cosmic, and we are created so God will have hands through which to act and voices through which to speak. I love when he talks about this, that we are God in action. We are that divine in that present moment. The stories that are being sent in to me, and believe me, at the end I'm going to give you my email address because I know you all have a story and I want to hear it because I want to put it into this book. But let me share with you one of the stories that was sent to me. One year, this lady was living in Michigan, and she had this overwhelming urge to fly down to Atlanta to visit a friend who was going through a very contentious divorce. The urge was so great and so overpowering that she spent over $600 on a full price, last minute, round trip ticket to get there. In the back of her mind, she kept questioning this decision, but she went ahead with it anyway. Something was really inspiring her to make the trip to Atlanta. Her friend, Anna, picked her up at the airport. En route back to her home, they stopped at a favorite restaurant for a leisurely meal. Upon arrival at her home, she walked into the living room and immediately spotted a shotgun leaning up against the corner of the wall. Upon closer inspection, she discovered that it was fully loaded. She questioned her girlfriend, and she commented that neither she nor her husband owned guns and had no idea how the gun managed to show up in her living room. They took the gun and unloaded it, and then hid it in the rental car that she had gotten when she flew into town. Later, the physician husband told this lady that he was so distraught over the pending divorce that he made arrangements for the children to be at his parents' home for the weekend and had taken them there prior to her arrival. He fully intended to shoot her that evening and then kill himself as well. This lady's unexpected arrival from the north foiled his plan. It gave him time to calm down. He has since told her multiple times how grateful he is that she showed up. She is still so glad that she listened to that urge to take the visit and to spend her $600 because it saved lives. How do those things happen? Isn't that amazing? That she felt that urge, not knowing why, not knowing who, but she just knew she had to be there. This was God showing up through her, and it saved not only lives, but those poor children. And if their parents had both died, imagine the destruction to them. This is God in action. This is God working through us to save lives, to create a healthier, whole, happier world. But we've got to listen. We've got to listen. I have many other stories, from simple ones that said turn here and they avoided an accident, to life-saving stories like this, the one I just shared. And I love reading these because it lets me know how connected we are to the divine. That if we feel this urge, that we are feeling that we absolutely need to be there for somebody else, listen to that. That's God telling you, I need you. I need you to be God in this situation. And think of the lives that it's saving. We are all divinely connected to each other and to God by whatever name you want to call God. You can call God truth or love or good or higher power or universal mind or peace or spirit or substance or creator, the presence, father, mother, divine mind. However, the name doesn't matter. It's that when we feel God at work through us, listen up. Listen up. The name is not nearly important as what it represents to you. How do you react when you get that divine feeling? That something beyond who calls you to action, and the action is entirely up to you. Just know that you can react any way you choose. But listen for what you're being guided to do. It's important. You are important. Your connection to the divine is important. Or your connection to each other is important. God is everywhere and in everything. God is like a loving parent, separate but looking out for us. And you, when you look into the mirror, know that you are the face of God. And how you show up is entirely up to you. But you are God in action. Let's take a moment and go into meditation.